Good Wednesday morning to you. It is First Alert meteorologist Isaac Williams here. Thank you for joining us on Atlanta News First Plus. I want to give you a quick update. It is a First Alert weather day. We still have some rain out there, and we've seen some light showers all morning. And we're going to continue to see those for a few more hours, and then we're going to see some drying weather conditions later today, and probably some sunshine. It's a bit dreary out there across Midtown Atlanta. We haven't seen a whole lot of rain to kind of add up so far, but we've definitely seen wet roadways, and we'll take you to First Alert radar in just a second. Temperatures, very pleasant, 64 degrees in the city, 55 though in LJ. It's been kind of raining up there. It's been a little foggy, and the rain has been more consistent in the Georgia mountains. So it's holding those temperatures down, but even 55 on a mid-February day is pretty nice. Rest of the day, rain chances are going to stick around through the next couple hours, but between noon and 3 is when things start to dry out. Notice we may still be cloudy in Atlanta by 3 o'clock, but by 6 p.m. on the tail end of the day, we should be able to squeeze out some sunshine as we get into right before sunset. Areas in the mountains should see a little bit more sunshine through the day, and then all of us see some clearing sky conditions tonight, and by Thursday morning, this is going to be the coldest start that we're going to see in the foreseeable future. We're seeing signs that mild weather will be the story. But tonight is going to be fairly chilly, not brutally cold, but it was 70 degrees yesterday and it's in the 60s today. So these 30s will be maybe a little bit of a shock. We've got 27 degrees in Blairsville, so you're going to be even colder there. 35 in Canton, 37 degrees in Atlanta. Here's First Alert radar. So right now the city pretty much dry, maybe a sprinkle or two here or there, but the best rain coverage so far has been just north of Metro Atlanta. I want to take you for a closer look here kind of on the radar tour. Starting out in northwest Georgia over toward Gordon County, seeing some showers continue there. Floyd County, Chattooga County, seeing some rain, and that's going to slide over into Pickens County near Jasper. You've been seeing some rain off and on most of the morning. Canton was seeing some rain earlier, now just some sprinkles. Farther east, over toward Lake Lanier, we're seeing some rain continue there over into areas of northeast Georgia. So Dahlonega, Dawsonville still seeing some wet weather over toward Gainesville and Oakwood in Hall County. Metro Atlanta probably won't see too much more heavy rain if we see any more. I think it's just going to be sprinkles and light showers for a couple of more hours, and then we're going to start to see things dry out again this afternoon. This is all thanks to a cold front that I'll show you in a second too, but south portions of our viewing area south of the city really hadn't seen much rain. If you live in Barnesville, Griffin, Thomaston, barely any rain, if any. That cold front is going to continue pressing southward and eventually sweep out the moisture. So what this looks like on Futurecast, you can see by 3 o'clock Atlanta in the process of clearing. And then as we get into 4 and 5 o'clock, all of that moisture shifts well into middle Georgia and into South Georgia. And again, on the tail end of the day, between 4 and 6 p.m., we should all see some sunshine. We have more First Alert weather days coming up for the weekend. Saturday is considered a First Alert weather day, but it's for those dinner, evening, late night plans that you may have on Valentine's Day. The day itself is not looking super rainy. Cloudy, yes, but rainy, not at this point. All the moisture is still west now. Could this system speed up? Yes, and that's the reason we're kind of continuing the First Alert weather day, is because we could see some rain move in a little sooner than right now what we're thinking. But by 11 p.m., scattered rain is moving in, and by the time we get to Sunday, it's still looking like a pretty soaker, washout type of day. Definitely a First Alert weather day there for Sunday. Widespread rain, as you'll see here in a second, 1 to 2 inches of rain could fall through most of Sunday, and it's not going to get out of here until sometime around dinner time on Sunday. So plans for Sunday probably need to be done indoors unless you have some Sunday evening dinner plans of 7 or 8 o'clock. Other than that, we're expecting kind of wet weather for most of Sunday. Rain totals, we'll see totals around an inch. Some of you may not get quite to an inch. Others may get 2 inches of rain. But it does look like a decent soaking is on the way. Other than that, we're looking at conditions actually, not cooling down behind the system. In fact, we're warming things up into the middle and upper 60s. And it looks like that mild weather is going to continue for most of next week. I know only through Tuesday is on the 7-day forecast here, but we're seeing signs that this mild weather is not letting up. So after tonight's chilly start in the 30s, we're going to be in pretty good shape going forward here with mild mornings and mild afternoons sticking around here. So that is, I think, some good news. We certainly have had a very, very cold stretch so far this winter, and we definitely maybe deserve a little bit of a warm-up, and that looks to be coming very, very soon. That is the latest here on your forecast here on Atlanta News First Plus. Up next here, we are going to talk about your midweek update of On the Record with Atlanta News First.
The top political story for this week so far has been something that happened late yesterday afternoon. I'm Tim Darnell. This is your On the Record midweek update, joined by my friend and colleague Doug Reardon. Doug, you were very familiar with what happened yesterday. We should say that today is Wednesday, February 11th. This happened on Tuesday, February 10th. Forgive my faux pas for not telling everyone exactly when we're recording this midweek update. Today is Wednesday, February 11th. But Doug, yesterday afternoon, the U.S. Justice Department unsealed a series of affidavits related to the FBI search warrant that happened on January 28th, 2026, when several hundred boxes of election records, ballots, tabulator tapes, etc., was seized from the Fulton County elections hub. Now, what happened yesterday was these affidavits were unsealed thanks to a lawsuit filed by Gray Media, who is our parent company here at Atlanta News First, along with several other media organizations. Fulton County officials were also seeking the release or the unsealing of those documents. Take us through what happened yesterday and what did we learn in arguably one of the biggest political stories we're covering in this very young year of 2026.
Yeah, just to give people a little background, obviously you mentioned the FBI raid. We know that agents went in there and seized about between 600 and 700 boxes of ballots and document materials, all the things you just mentioned. And what the warrant did was tell us exactly the charges that they were there to see. We had that on the first day of this story. We had just a very brief kind of like one page, okay, it was a Title 52 violation, which has to do with how they store records, and it has to do with chain of custody issues, but we had no idea what evidence the FBI was basically citing to get a judge to sign off on this warrant. Obviously, it was compelling enough to at least one judge for them to sign off on this and allow them to go in there and get it. And so what we had been waiting for this whole time was kind of the body of the warrant. The affidavit tells you exactly who they interviewed to get the information that was the basis for them going in and seizing these records, and also some of the potential charges if this comes to a legal battle, because we know it was a criminal warrant, which I think is something that we're not talking about enough, that this was a criminal warrant, and we could have litigation play out after this. So this told us a lot of information. What I will say is that it's not necessarily new information. It's all stuff that we had pretty much known before. And in fact, Tim, it's all things that have been investigated either by some combination of the Secretary of State's office, the State Elections Board, or some other entity in the state. Looking through this, we got this at about 4 o'clock. The deadline was about 5 o'clock for them to have to unseal this, and so we had to go through it very quickly before we got on air and reported it to you all. And in that room full of reporters, we were all kind of going through that, waiting for kind of the bombshell or the smoking gun in this document, and it was really all stuff that we had seen before. Some of the allegations included chain of custody issues,
Right.
where Fulton County, had not changed hands with these ballots properly a number of times, missing or unsigned or, incorrectly signed tabulator tapes, which is a mistake that Fulton County actually admitted a couple of months ago in front of the State Elections Board. And then there were other issues in terms of, missing ballots, double copied or double counted ballots, pristine ballots, which are ballots that, according to some election skeptics, are in too good a shape to be real ballots, because you turn your ballots in, you're putting them through the machine, they get crinkled, they get folded, whatever the case may be. So there were a litany of different familiar election skeptic claims that we saw in that document that, I think people were, it kind of ended with a little bit of a fizzle rather than a bang. But the case still moves forward. Fulton County still has an active lawsuit to get those ballots back. And so, this was Rob Pitts, the chairman of the Fulton County Commission yesterday, called it recycled lies and mistruths, or recycled rumors and lies. And so I think a lot of people were surprised to see that even after all this investigation into the allegations that were in the affidavit, that a judge still signed off on it and allowed the FBI to go in and get these documents.
It's interesting you mentioned the Secretary of State and the state elections boards have investigated the results of Fulton County's 2020 election, found no wrongdoing, no issues or instances of malfeasance or what have you. And yet it's very interesting, only a few moments after these affidavits were unsealed and made public, we received a statement from Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who we should mention is a Republican gubernatorial candidate for our wide-open governor's race here in Georgia in 2026, saying, and I'm paraphrasing, that there really isn't any need to go back and rehash the election results from 5 years ago. Let's move forward.
He called it a waste of time to do it.
Right. Exactly. So you get the sense that he is trying to burnish his reputation for carrying out safe and secure and very efficient elections. We know that one of the things that we learned in these documents yesterday was that Kurt Olson, who is an attorney for President Donald Trump, who has been very vocal in the quote-unquote Stop the Steal movement from 4 or 5 years ago. This really originated from a referral from him. Now, he has been appointed by President Trump. He's holding a special White House position to be the lead person on whether or not there was any election engineering or election misconduct for 2020. I did not know he was the person who was behind all of this, from which this really originated from.
That was, if I would say anything, the biggest, newest nugget out of that affidavit was that he was the one behind this. So again, just to paint that picture, the individual you're referring to did work for the Trump administration and actually led a faction of the Stop the Steal movement in a number of different places. And so this is someone who is a deep election skeptic and critic, certainly of the Fulton County elections in 2020. But again, one of my colleagues at the press conference yesterday with Chairman Pitts asked him point blank, does that mean anything to you? And Pitts did not hesitate at all in saying that in his mind proved that this was purely political, that you had essentially a Stop the Steal operative acting as the complainant in this matter. And I'll tell you, Tim, a lot of the names were redacted, but it was very easy to tell who was who in this document and who was making which complaints, again, because we've heard them all before. These are complaints that have existed for almost 5.5 years now. They've been thoroughly investigated. People seem to just not be satisfied with the answer. So what we're looking at the ballots do, and actually taking a look at the vote counts and being able to do it themselves, whoever they are. We still don't know who has the ballots, by the way, or where they are. Maybe that will kind of be the nail in this coffin of 2020. And we had asked Sally Grubbs, a member of the State Elections Board, what will finally put this to rest? If the DOJ does an investigation, your DOJ, a Trump Justice Department, does an investigation with the original ballots that you've been asking for 5 years, and they don't find anything, can we put this to bed? And Sally said, I'll put it to bed if the counts match up. That's a big if, right? And again, one of the worries of the commission yesterday was that the FBI took the original ballots. They have no way to check the work of this investigatory process, whoever it is that's doing it. But the fact that this complaint was originated and then, basically pushed forward by a deep election critic within the Trump administration who led parts of the Stop the Steal movement, certainly set up a lot of red flags for the county officials that we spoke to yesterday.
Well, this is your on-the-record midweek report here on Atlanta News First. Tim Darnell here with Doug Reardon. Doug, when you were at the presser yesterday afternoon at Fulton County, what was the mood there? What do Fulton County officials hope will happen next with their lawsuit and whether or not there's any chance of getting the ballots returned in whatever condition they were originally seized from by the FBI. What's your sense among Fulton County leaders right now?
Yeah, a couple things. We had asked Chairman Pitts earlier in the day, what do you think the chances, just what you asked, what are the chances of getting that the ballots back? And he said he thinks they're very high. They do technically, in his mind, belong to the county of Fulton. Again, the FBI had a warrant to come in and seize them, but they were able to achieve part of this lawsuit in unsealing the warrant affidavit. And so Pitts said, that makes me very hopeful that we'll be able to achieve the other portion of that, which is actually getting back custody of those ballots. A big worry of his was the DOJ was supposed to provide some sort of inventory of what was seized. As of yesterday, he does not have that. It was not included in the affidavit. And so Pitts essentially told me, we don't know exactly what we're missing. We know the original ballots are gone. We know a lot of tabulator tapes are gone, but we don't have that inventory from the DOJ to know what was taken out of that building, which is obviously concerning not only for Pitts but also for voters. And as for the sense of what the room was like yesterday at that press conference, and in my conversation with Chairman Pitts a couple hours before that, straight frustration. That's the only word that comes to mind. He is so sick of people rehashing this 2020 election and putting him at the center of it, because again, his point is that we didn't do this with the 2016 election. We didn't do this with the 2024 election. And he sarcastically said to me, gee, I wonder why that's the case, obviously implying that Donald Trump won both of those elections. Now, the margins in Georgia in 2020 were razor thin. 11,000 votes in the grand scheme of things is really nothing. And so, sure, the audits, the recounts, the investigations, I think people were happy to see that on both sides of the aisle. You want to make sure that you have the right results. But we've now been going through this for 6 years, and you can feel the fatigue in Pitts and some of the members of that state elections board, some of them, and you can also feel it in the certainly in the members of the Fulton County Commission. They're just sick of rehashing this, and I think that seeing some of the same allegations that again have been debunked and put to bed, some of them for years now, was really disheartening for those Fulton County commissioners to see it kind of rear back, and in fantastic fashion, you use these debunked allegations to seize original ballots. And so I think that just when we thought in terms of the Fulton County Commission that they were getting to the other end of this, now here comes this affidavit that is full of debunked theories about the election, and it's just really, you can tell, frustrating for them.
And all of this is happening in the middle as we enter into the 2026 midterm elections here in Georgia. We are the state where we have some of the most nationally watched elections this summer and this fall. One of those elections, obviously, is for the 14th Congressional District in Northwest Georgia, where Marjorie Taylor Greene stunned the nation's political establishment late last year when she announced that she will not run for re-election. She has officially vacated her seat. That seat in Congress is currently vacant, and yet we have a March 10th special election. We're less than 1 month out of that election from today, February 11th. That special election set for March 10th. A runoff, which is all but certain, set for April 7th. This morning we received news that the field is narrowing, albeit slowly. From initially we had 22 announced candidates running for that seat. Now we have 20. Jared Craig, a Republican, became the second Republican to drop out of the race and offer his endorsement to Clay Fuller, who is a district attorney for the Lookout Mountain Judicial Circuit. Doug, last week President Trump endorsed District Attorney Fuller. He has now been endorsed by the first candidate who dropped out, Christian Hurd, dropped out of the race only a couple of days after he qualified. Now Jared Craig is endorsing Clay Fuller. All of this is happening less than a month away from the special election, and also only about 36 hours from a scheduled 14th District Republican forum, in which case this heavily Republican district, we cannot discount any Democratic hopefuls who might hope to make the runoff, but this is a solidly Republican district, and you get the sense that the 14th District GOP would really like to narrow this field up a little bit more between now and March 10th.
And my suspicion is that Trump endorsing a candidate, A, at all, B, this early in the race, was a move to do exactly that, and it seems to be working so far, at least with one candidate. If you have Trump's endorsement, it is very likely that you are going to come out on top in this primary in the 14th district in particular, because that's Trump country. I mean, like we said, that's one of the reddest districts in this entire state, and so Trump's endorsement carries a lot of weight in places like that. We know it will carry a lot of weight in the 14th district this year, and so I think that Trump making this endorsement was kind of a signal to the rest of the field to say, this is our guy, and this is who we want to be the nominee, because again, this is a runoff state. So if no one collects more than that majority vote, then we got to do it all over again. And so the danger here, as we've been talking about for a long time, is with all these Republican candidates, if somebody gets 10%, if somebody gets 5%, if somebody gets 7%, somebody else gets 12%, great. You could have a Democrat that gets the entirety of the Democratic voting bloc there, and bada boom, you got a Democrat in the general election. So I think the fear here is not necessarily a Democrat getting the entire majority. That's mathematically probably not going to happen. But the White House and some of the people at the higher levels of government definitely want to see this field thinned out so that people are not splitting votes in this very crucial primary. And keep in mind, you have to do it all again in a couple of months for the
We have
midterm
4
elections.
elections
Yeah,
set.
and so you could have 4 or 5 elections between now and then, and you really want to make sure that the entire very deeply red voting bloc is behind potentially or hopefully for the Republicans one person. Clay Fuller, by all accounts, seems to be a good choice for the president. He's right in line with that Make America First Again ethos. He is a district attorney in the Lookout Mountain area, which includes Catoosa County and other places up north. He's also a veteran, and so this is your archetypal Trump pick, someone who is truly America First, someone who is involved in law enforcement to a certain degree, and is a veteran. So no surprise, I think, that this is who Trump ended up endorsing. I think it was more of a surprise that he did it as early as he did it. But again, I think it's a move to thin that field out. We've already seen 2 candidates drop out, so there's going to be a little bit more room on that crowded stage tomorrow.
And we have a list of all of the candidates who are still in this race for the 14th Congressional District on AtlantaNewsFirst.com, as well as a list of all of the important and crucial voting dates here in Georgia in our very important 2026 midterm elections. A reminder to watch On the Record with Atlanta News First every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. with my friend and colleague Rick Folbaum and Doug Reardon. They're the host of the most comprehensive and most informative political show on Atlanta broadcast airwaves. For Doug Reardon, I'm Tim Darnell for this midweek edition of On the Record with Atlanta News First.
So Jackie was like, that's not how that works. And